Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
I know you guys are going to ask me. Derek, participated in practice. We had him on a little bit of a pitch count today, but he did well. And I think signs are optimistic for the weekend.
Dennis Allen, Wednesday afternoon after the Saints practiced, announcing something that we had all kind of anticipated. The attendance report from our guy Ross Jackson over at LouisianaSports.net noted that Carr was back at practice, which is great to see. As we've said all along, look, this team, the 2024 New Orleans Saints, are better with Derek Carr. You are better with your starting quarterback. That should go without saying. We can all have the conversation of what this team's ceiling is, health or not. I think I've been pretty outspoken about that. Not really a lot of ambiguity with where I stand on the issue and the matter. But yes, I want Derek Carr healthy. Want to see him out there. Want to see the Saints play at their best. So looks like they might get him back there. Allen was also asked about the backup because, when Carr was injured against Kansas City, it was Jake Haener. But whenever Carr was out, it was Spencer Rattler that started 3 weeks. So what's the deal?
Will Jake be the backup when Derek's back?
Yeah, that's probably the direction that we're gonna go. Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting, and I would love to know maybe a follow-up as to why they've made the decision to make Haener the backup in these situations, like they did against Kansas City. But when they had the opportunity to name a starter for 3 weeks, it was Spencer Rattler. I don't know that it was any proof of performance or anything like that because there wasn't a whole lot from either guy to write home about. But the Saints are getting healthier, and that's fantastic to see. Dennis Allen had a little more to say, which we'll get to here in a second. But also of note is that the Saints did open up the 21-day practice window for Nephi Sewell and Shane Lemieux. So if you're not familiar with how that works, I'll try to oversimplify it because they were on IR, but with designation of return. Remember, Sewell tore his ACL last year, and Lemieux started a game after Eric McCoy was injured. He started the Falcons game, and then he was injured, and then they sort of shuffled from there. But when you go on IR with the designation of return, when they open your practice window, you have 21 days. And in those 21 days, you have to be signed back to the active roster. You have to take one of the 53 active roster spots if you're going to be added. So because they have opened that 21-day window, you would assume that Lemieux and Nephi Sewell would both be available here sometime in the next 3 weeks. And I'm not telling you that Shane Lemieux returning to the Saints offense is all of a sudden going to make them the juggernaut they were in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think a big part of what they were in the first week, scoring 47 against Carolina, was you were going against Carolina, which is averaging 35 points per game allowed to this point. Or maybe it's 34.9, I think is what it is. We talked about it earlier in the week. They're one of the worst defenses we've ever seen. So that helps. But yes, you want depth. You want veteran depth. You want experience. We've seen the MASH unit on the offensive line, and if you tell me if someone goes down, I can go to a veteran like Shane Lemieux instead of someone like Landon Young or Nick Saldiveri, who have proven not to be really good options for you, sure, I would absolutely prefer that. So the Saints are getting healthier. The next domino to fall will be Eric McCoy. Specifically with Derek Carr, though, Dennis Allen was asked about Carr's range of motion, sort of the comfort in throwing the football, because that was kind of his issue with that abdominal injury, was he just couldn't turn and get anything behind the football.
Yeah, look, like I said, I thought he looked good in practice today. We'll see how he feels tomorrow, but it was encouraging.
So Derek Carr is one piece of Sunday's game in Carolina that's very interesting. The other thing that's pretty interesting is what Dave Canales told reporters, and this was I'm looking at it here on Twitter from Rappaport, but apparently this was Dave Canales, the head coach there in Carolina, who has announced that Bryce Young will again start this week, and that Andy Dalton is expected to be the backup. So if you missed the word, Dalton was in a car wreck, and he was injured. That cost him the opportunity to start last week. Bryce Young was back under center after a couple of week hiatus when he was benched in favor of Andy Dalton. And so now they're going to stick with Bryce Young, seemingly, who didn't play particularly well against New Orleans in week 1. Canales was asked on Monday, this is before he made the announcement that Bryce Young was going to start. Canales was asked about improvements from Bryce Young. So remember, he started the season, they were miserable, he got benched. So they saw him again. He threw for over 200 yards for the first time this season. And so Canales was asked sort of in context. Young had a couple weeks to sit and watch. Now he's back in. Did you see any improvements from the beginning of the season?
I thought he had some excellent drives. I thought he had some excellent throws in there. I think the offense will be the first to tell you. There were some things all across the board. In the run game and the pass game. And we're just asking Bryce to do his one part of it. And I thought he did a pretty good job of that today.
Panthers are the worst team in the NFL by a wide margin. So much so that the Saints are mired in the longest losing streak they've had in 20 years. They're still a touchdown favorite in Carolina. And remember, Carolina also just traded away its best receiver. One more thought on that, but real quick, Dennis Allen, no, forgive me. No, we're good. We're good. I would say this with respect to how Carolina has handled their business. You can look at Carolina and the struggles they're going through. And I think a lot of it is to be expected. Carolina's done what I think a lot of people here wanted the Saints to do. They hit a full reset of their franchise. They traded up to the number 1 overall pick to take Bryce Young, and the jury is very much out on that. I mean, he has not been impressive, but at the same time, you could also look at Carolina and understand that they traded Brian Burns. They traded DJ Moore. They traded Christian McCaffrey. Like, they looked at every asset they had and said, who can we trade? Who has value to where we can get younger and more affordable and hit the reset button on our franchise? They just traded Deontay Johnson, their best wide receiver. So I understand Carolina stinks, and it is very difficult to look at that if you're a fan or someone within that organization where there is expectation of performance and results and winning, but I don't know how you can expect to win and have great on-field results when you've turned over your coaching staff 3 times in the last 4 years. You traded away Brian Burns and DJ Moore and Deontay Johnson and Christian McCaffrey. Like, you've traded away all of your young assets, all of your assets, essentially, to get draft capital to try to get younger and reset your franchise. I'm not telling you it's going to work, because a big part of that is you have to hit on those draft assets. I mean, look at a team like Cincinnati, which was miserable for a decade, or Cleveland. The Jets, who continuously draft at the Bears at the top of the draft, but when you keep missing on your picks at the top of the draft, you never get any better. So yes, there's part of that, which is you have to hit on those picks to get better, but you're investing in your future, acknowledging what you are, and that there's not an easy road. There's no sort of escalator to the top. You got to go take the stairs. And part of me admires it because they recognize what they are and they're trying to do something about it. Now, their owner's crazy, but at least they are acknowledging what they are and trying to gain assets. You could see the path forward, at least the strategy. With the New Orleans Saints, it's hard to acknowledge that that strategy exists. So, 2 franchises at the bottom of the NFL right now, but they've taken very different paths to get there and with very different approaches of how to get out. Saints and Panthers Sunday in Carolina. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.